Welcome, welcome. Prescott Pod, all right? Hood stop. We're here to make sure that we're passing out the proper information, keeping it positive in every aspect that we do such, right? Making sure that that vessel is well motivated to get to the destination that we set it to, all right? Individuals that we bring on here have that same type of like-minded frame to where they understand the mission as well. And today, we got one of those soldiers, one of those kings, one of those individuals that can point you in the right direction to help you be successful, whether it's vicariously, lazily, or with intention. My man, Royal Minister.
Appreciate you, brother.
Peace.
Thank you, man. You got a beautiful setup.
Appreciate
as I
that,
said
man.
before, from not just the aesthetics, but the details. Everything in here is specific and intentional, and I'm already loving the vibes, and I'm excited to see what it is we dive into exactly.
Appreciate that. As far as the vibes, I like to make sure a lot of what I'm touching is still connected to, Black excellence, Black roots, companies that we have on display here. A lot of the Black-owned companies that are doing that thing that have physical, tangible fruition here that you can take part of. And we can talk about how to get to all of that. I'm probably post them at the video, let you know who to contact and who to follow to make sure that you're following the right shepherds. Cool? All right. Appreciate that, bro.
Absolutely.
So my man. I'm gonna say, first time I met you, bro, was at one of them POW conventions, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Heard you speaking, and the vibe was crazy. I was like, wow, this dude is talking about everything we need, man. Political, energy, you got the LL joints, what you need. And I just felt like the message needed to be put out there, man. I felt like I was able to witness something that I want to go tell my people about, man. So, cool. All right. A lot of what we do, hip hop based, Black culture based. I'm gonna ask you a few things, and please, bro. I don't judge. Give me your unbiased. This is a free space. So, my first question to you, bro. I'm a big hip hop fan. I love the creativity of rap, the creativity of hip hop, the making of beats, the making of music, the poetry, the way we connect that as a culture. That's us, right? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the current stage of hip hop, my guy?
Wow, powerful question to start off with.
That's how we doing it.
Yeah, you already know it's in alignment as we are on Align TV. The alignment there is because you said you met me at one of the big powwows, which actually happened a week ago here in Atlanta, where I spoke at the private cast and where we met. One of the first things I mentioned was actually music and the fact that I'm in a space of getting ready to open up a one-of-a-kind record label that allows artists to basically own their royalties or their masters. So right now the state of music is in a degrading state. Hip hop itself, I spoke about, was created in the late 70s or really the early 70s, in Bronx, New York. And it was a tool. It was a device that they wielded out of their spirits. In the time where Bronx, New York was going through a lot of, drug problems, going through a lot of gang, but not even really gang, mafia problems. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the drugs was coming from. They were coming from the mob, the mafia. And the mafia were the individuals who just happened to own a lot of the real estate. And to own real estate, unless you had good credit, you had to have good relationships. So that was the credit back then. So yeah, hip hop came out to expose these things, and it was very informative. And you had an MC, which was a master of ceremonies, a master. You had individuals who had these surnames like Biggie and Big Pun and Big This and Big That. Nowadays when you look at the artists, you got little this and little this and little that.
The perceptions change.
Yeah, the perceptions change of how a man, and especially how a Black man looks at himself. One, and then two, we lost the aspect of having women and men making R&B songs like the Ja Rule and whether it be the Kims and the Alicias, and that image is really missing from hip hop, the divine feminine energy. And right now I'll end it by saying we're in a state where our favorite genre of music to listen to is trap music. So are we really free or pushing for freedom when we love to be in the trap? Not just be in the trap of music, but in the trap chilling with the homies. So.
And you know what? I received that too, bro. I feel the same way. I feel like there's certain terms and certain narratives that are put in place to kind of keep a mentality in a certain stage of growth or non-growth. It's being stumped. And I don't think that's our fault. I feel as though there's another thing involved there that's kind of controlling the strings on the puppet that's making it react like that,
Yeah, I was going to speak about that, but I was doing my best to focus on hip hop. Yeah, because unless you have a broadcasting station, right? Unless you have a radio station, you can make music, but at least when hip hop started, your music wouldn't be able to be heard. So yeah, through the individuals who have broadcasting stations and radio stations, they control what sound actually is coming out for others to hear.
It's funny you say what you just said. When hip hop started, it was its strongest, or of the strongest root in which a tree grew from that had other fruits for others to eat from, right? Mm. But we didn't have a station. We didn't have broadcasting. They wasn't trying to hear us, but we did everything that we had to do to solidify the beginning of a culture. The thinking is a little backwards now. Right. To where we feel like we have to be on a station in order for this to mean something. We didn't need that before. It was a creative art. It was a creative act. And we performed and delivered with precision because that was ours. And we got tricked into thinking it has to be on someone's TV in order for it to be qualified.
Yeah.
And I think that's the miseducation there.
Yeah, and even to back up your point, some more there. Yeah, the hip hop first few scenes or scenarios started just at parks. I went to New York City. I was there a couple years ago at the Brooklyn Library for the 50th anniversary of hip hop.
Fire.
Yeah, and I saw KRS-One speak, and actually I saw Jay-Z's mother speak too.
Wow.
Yeah, and KRS-One, he was talking about the beginning of hip hop because he was there with the first set of crews that started hip hop. Him and DJ Kool Herc and the individuals.
Well, I know that was dope to see right now.
Yeah, it was super dope. Just the way he's speaking, so much power and so much conviction because it's been 50 years of hip hop. And he was there in the beginning. And he was like, if it wasn't for this guy, DJ Kool Herc, he wasn't even the DJ at the time. His sister asked if we could throw a party and raise money because she was going to college. You know what I'm saying? So we threw a party and he brought together these crates and these speakers and he put the records on top and he started spinning, and that was the first time a party was DJ'd. So he was like, when we celebrated, that's when hip hop came out, is when we celebrated. So yeah, that definitely backs up your point. There was no station needed. It was they just attracted people. What is that? The precision, like you said, the cunningness and the sound and the sharpness and just the whole culture of it is what brought it out, not the station or the channel.
We were and are Picassos of the music genre, my man. And somebody whispered into our ears that we're not anymore. How does that happen?
Yeah, thank you for asking, because me, I be having all the little secrets or the secrets, So I was actually talking about this the other day.
Fantastic.
I think it was right about 1985, and that's like maybe 10 years after hip hop was, getting developed. They went into those same hoods and they cracked it. They cracked the frequency. And what I literally mean is they dropped crack out of helicopters. So that distorted all of the ears, all the sounds, or the listeners. So now they didn't want that streak in that order, and they just wanted the feelness, the dope. They started chasing the dopamine. You know what I'm saying? So the music changed from like hip hop to, we started getting real groovy, in the 80s. And everybody was getting groovy in the 80s, but the grooviness really was an evolution of hip hop. Uh-huh. You know what I'm saying? And then, but the power was so strong, they did a good job, they as in Rakim and, the Funk Master Flesh, of capturing it back by 1995. But ever since that 1995 to like 2001, after the Outkast era, everything like that, they re-cracked it again. But like definitely drugs or stimulants, medications is how they originally got into the community
Ooh, I
to
agree.
be able to distort the actual sound, the perspective of the music.
I feel like somebody actually studied us and said, you know what, I think this particular drug is going to help stop that particular notion. Let's try that. Because we are also explorers. We're very curious. That's how we found certain things like mushrooms, psilocybin, and what they can do beneficially for the intellectual mind. And we create from those palettes now. It's the same processes as creating a hip hop genre and what it turned into, to where we're still here sparking those fires. But it's almost as though people are afraid of the fire now, even though we came from. Speak about the effects of what you think psilocybin will contribute to the creativity in the culture.
So going back to that drug, or there's no other thing to call it but a drug. It just changes your brain waves, and your brain is what's facilitating your whole functioning of your body. So if your brain is now releasing cortisol or dopamine, now your brain is designed to keep you away from pain and push you towards pleasure. So as long as they can give you something that's pleasurable, your brain will continue seeking that. That's just chemistry, right? And not only that, but in the hood, they call it the projects. So that is telling you that it's a project. You know what I'm saying? That they were working on. It's called a project for a reason, right? And also even the word neighborhood. The neighborhood is where where they kept poor Jews at back in the day when they was having the Holocaust. You know what I'm saying? In Germany and stuff, they kept them in neighborhoods. That's what they call it. So it's a whole German word. Yeah, it's a whole German word. You know what I'm saying? So that's why in different areas, different economic areas, they don't call it a neighborhood. They call it a what do they call it? Like you're like white people. They don't be like, I'm in my neighborhood. They be like, I'm in my. I can't remember right now, but they don't call it a neighborhood. It's like what's the other word terms? But just to answer your question, but psilocybin has psycho or psyche reactors. Whenever you hear the word psyche, like psychology, the word psyche is a root for the mind. So when you're taking psychedelics, that's tapping into your mind. Now, specifically with the magic mushroom, they call it magic for a reason, because they like to tell us in science you can only access up to 12% of your brain, right? Now, that doesn't sound all the way right. It's like having an iPhone or device and you can only charge it up to 20%.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How come you can't use 100% of it?
The narrative is crazy.
Yeah. So the active compound in mushrooms is psilocybin. Now, psilocybin does what's called hemisync, and it connects the left hemisphere of the brain, the right hemisphere of the brain by way of the pituitary and the pineal gland, and synchronizes them. So now the logic side, the processing comes together with the creative side, and things make sense. And they call it tripping to control the narrative, because you might be crazy once you start seeing from both sides of reality, because you start seeing like, wait, the food guide pyramid, or even the commercials that they program and they give to me, these things are not actually for the benefit of my higher self. The food guide pyramid tells you to drink milk, which is a euphemism for pus, and tells you to drink or eat dairy, which a lot of this comes from cows. And when you eat food, you're picking up the DNA or the hormones of the entity.
Supposed to be taken from other mammals like that.
Yeah. The milk coming from the cows, that's for a calf, a baby cow, who grows to be 2,000 some pounds, right? And we only grow to be 200 some pounds, if that. We're drinking this same milk, of a different species. So, yeah, the psilocybin starts helping you see like, wait, maybe this is not right. Otherwise you're underneath the program of the brain going towards pleasure and away from pain. So psilocybin really helps you deal with the reality, which the truth, they say, hurts. So this is why we won't deal with the reality when we're not off of a certain psyche actives, or if we don't study psychedelics or study psychology, right?
I feel like those things will name certain things to keep certain people afraid of them or away from them, to where I partake myself, and I feel as though they unlock a certain thinking pattern or thinking process or a certain line or a way of creativity. And that's something you shouldn't be afraid of. If you're a creative individual and you're a painter and I can introduce you to new colors, why would you not want to add to your current palette? You know what I mean?
That's a great
And I feel
analogy.
as though that's something that without educational purpose or research that you won't find, and you'll never have a chance to experience or evolve that way of thinking within yourself or one's individual mind. You know what I mean? Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Especially, last thing I will say, especially anything they cloud as mystery or dark, that's where you want to knock on the door and see, well, why do they cloud this as mystery and dark? Because the things they do cloud as light and good, we start realizing, wait, this isn't as good as I think it is. You know, like church, and we're used to seeing, Jesus, and although in the scripture it says his hair was a certain way, his skin color was a certain way, you see the image in one way. When you go to
different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Programming.
Yeah.
Programming, narrative. Speaking in retort to what you just said, if I know for a fact that this individual doesn't know his or her capacity, to where if they did, I would be not only surpassed, but possibly maimed or slaved. I'm not going to tell you that you're the man. I'm going to do everything that I can to help you forget that, right? But then once you start having that intuitive feeling of figuring your stuff out yourself and you become that, don't be afraid of it, is what I think happens out there. You have individuals that find themselves and they become this marvelous niche filler. And when they do, it's like, oh, what do I do with this? And it dissipates because that level isn't really educated about. That way of thinking isn't really educated about. With those individuals, man, to whoever's listening to this that has that creative spark, what would you say towards keeping that? What would you say towards helping that individual know it's cool to evolve that?
Man, I give this man asking some powerful questions. Like,
appreciate that, bro. Appreciate that.
These questions
Appreciate
heal.
that.
These questions build. And like these are the things that a lot of the design of my business is predicated upon. So, and it's simple. I would say find your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Find your family. Your family is your frequency. Birds of a feather flock together, right? So all these idioms or these words show that we're not designed to do things and to evolve alone. That's literally not how the cells in your body work. That's not how the organs in your body function. So this is not how we are supposed to function, right? And they don't implore enough interdependence because we live in a country, if we're calling it a country, that's independent, right? And we celebrate the Independence Day. But it's 3 stages of dependency, right? There's dependency, there's independency, then there's interdependency. Knowing that if I go work out and I take somebody with me, this is interdependency. Say I'm squatting. I know if I have a spotter spotting me when I'm squatting, I can do much more weight than if I was just in there squatting by myself. That's interdependency. So just like the cells in your body communicate towards and send signals back and forth, and when the signal is established, they create a bond. Then that bond can become covalent, and then it can create something for function. It's the same thing as above, so below, as within, so without. The law of correspondence shows us that if you want to stay at your next level of evolution, you got to find others who's on that wave.
Facts indeed.
Because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if all you got is yourself, then all it takes is one weekday to throw off all the past 18 months or 18 weeks of training or prepping that you've done. Which is why all sports teams, even individual fighters, they have coaches and support teams that allow them to stabilize themselves at that higher frequency. Otherwise, again, 85% of our thoughts are negative. It's the programs and it's the advertisements and it's the colors. We don't understand that while we might be conscious of what's going on, the subconscious is actually controlling your reality.
That's right.
95% of your day is ruled by the subconscious. So you may be consciously like, okay, let me brush my teeth. But subconsciously, you're not like, all right, hand, arm, move, wrist, teeth. You know what I'm saying? That's the subconscious movement of the matter, what you're not thinking about. So you're only making your conscious decision based upon how you learn to do this subconscious movement.
Configuration.
Right. Yeah. So subconsciously, we're programmed to go back to that level. And it's the law of octaves. Every time you open a new door to success, things are thrown at you, or it's really density of the force of gravity that's coming towards you, trying to get you to close that door. But if you can see others in there thriving, then you're like, wait, seeing is believing. And as long as the mind can consciously perceive, then the senses will try to smell it, it will try to hear it, it will try to feel it, and then you can embody that state permanently.
I like that. I like that. I want to touch on something before we get into this next question, right? And it's mindset. You know what I mean? Along my travels, along my exchange of energies, I come to find that like the way you think can control how your body responds to certain things. And I like to refer to that as like your subconscious training. The way you're purposely putting programming into yourself to where you have these natural reactions that help you make better decisions. And I think that comes in to your separation from whatever current narrative. You know what I mean? People get sick, programming is, you take a pill, feel better. Some individuals, they don't experience getting sick because the thought of never really settled. And then if whatever precautions are set in place to where the setting is there for that individual to get sick based on their thinking, their subconscious is moving that vessel a certain way to avoid that without them having to request it to where it's never needed. I feel as though if with these types of conversations and trickles of education, an individual can change the way they think to perceive whatever energy and whatever wave the way they want. I hesitated to say the word want because your subconscious does what it needs. It doesn't have a want system. It does what's necessary for the survival of the next step. But if you program your subconscious to think in such a step form to where every step you took was to benefit the solidified foundation that you're walking on, you would move completely different, right? You mentioned something at the meeting that I met you at, and it was about.
So really quickly, I wanted to also add to that because like you be sparking things when you get to talking. I'm like,
I like that, man.
You're right. Like so, because anybody watching this at whatever time, like this. I don't know how your typical meetings go, but right now we're unlocking the door.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? Not just to freedom, but like liberation. Because you said, you change your thinking. Yeah, you can completely change your entire programming. And you made me think about the sequence of the way we make actions and decisions. So yeah, it does come from the way you think. And the way you think comes from the way you perceive. So what you're perceiving and how you're looking at things, that reshapes your thinking. So even because some people find it difficult to change their thinking, like this is also like a lot of women, they may be so hurt about a situation that it's hard for them to think differently about it. Like, I'm hurt, that's what I feel. So then what helps is if you start seeing other images. So I'm not saying like try to see on the bright side. No, like go watch a movie. You know what I'm saying? Go and see another perspective that is also similar to yours. And that will help you think differently because now you saw the light.
Right. Don't feed the program. Change the program. You know what I mean? Yeah, I felt that. To dig a little deeper into, yes, some of the current situations that we have that are in play that are attached to the narrative are in correlation with the energy we give certain situations, certain terms, certain words. And our reaction to is also a programming. The N word, if I could hit it with it, right? It's nothing to me, bro. It's nothing. My nigga. Yeah. Even if somebody that doesn't look like me says it, because of how I'm programmed, doesn't affect me. Unless I feel there's a purposefully injected intention, right. I can feel a negative energy versus a negative word.
Right.
But that word is only negative if you give it energy. Right. Now, someone's intention when they deliver something to you is all on how they deliver. That could be handled separately.
Right.
But in carrying, certain things don't get, hey, unless you are trained to, hey, just like guard dogs.
Yeah.
Someone touches this door, you bark.
Yeah.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
Someone touches the fridge, he does nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're programmed to think a different way, our reactions will then start putting stones in place to where we start walking a different way. To where walking a different way will then get us to different destinations, to where those new destinations will start teaching us new and different things, to where those things should naturally change our perspective. And that's really the purpose of these types of things. Education, I feel, is the key. Knowledge is a key.
Yeah, what I just got from you too is like consistency too, like a discipline. Like really be about like changing your program.
Absolutely.
You know, like do the thing daily or weekly, reinforce the positive habits just as much as you do.
21 days for a habit, 10,000 hours to master it. I agree with that. I agree with that. Bro, you were dope, bro. Your perspective, perspective is lit.
No, you were
bro.
dope. And then when you gave a little bit of your background earlier about the dynamic of your family and everything, I'm like, okay, so you have extreme vision.
You know man, I push the envelope in most areas. Folks look at me and would feel uncomfortable themselves. I look at those certain situations and certain experiences that I've had and I feel fine because I don't give energy to certain things that a normal person or individual would give energy to. I'm not easily moved, but I'm very easily entertained and inspired.
Sounds like a king to me. A king, not easily moved, sitting on the throne, but easily entertained. Entertainment, please.
Oh, wow. See, you put a visual to it, man. But yeah, okay, so kingly talk, man.
Yeah, kingly talk.
That's from the lineage. That's not something I'm trying to portray. That's something I feel. That's something that's inside of me. That's why we're sitting here. That's something that's inside of you.
Yeah, that's why, you know, I'm not in my royal garbs. I'm a little bit.
Of course you are.
It's Saturday, so Saturday, the color for Saturday is Saturn, and Saturn is black. So that's why I'm in all black. I'm in my Shabbat mode. You know what I'm saying?
And if you need to rewind that and write some notes, please do that. Make sure your Google search is on point. Thank you.
Please. It's 2025. We have AI search too, so there's no excuses anymore for not knowing. Welcome to the age of Aquarius, aka the age of technology, where the knowledge is becoming technical, and the more technical you are of the knowledge, the more we advance as a whole, right?
Some things you got to acknowledge so you know when it's time to soak in something, okay? Time to soak. Got that? Is you cool? All right. For those that are done soaking, come on back.
We need this guy.
Okay, so the educational portion of this, everything happens for a reason. Normally, if you're watching this, if you're attracted to this, if you feel something from this, it's all on purpose. And that's kind of why that felt like a rhyme, because it's rhythmical and it resonated with the algorithm that has you here right now, right? So something else that I learned about this individual, this entity, there we go. A lot of research on particular venues that we're going to get into on certain things that he's accomplished that I just want to touch on, not to get too deep, because time is precious. You got to do some homework too. But the introduction to what I'm about to say is necessary to where you know what to do your research on. My gentleman also has a church. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you please elaborate on what that means? Because I'm going to tell you what just happened. Whoever's watching this, vibing. Oh, he got a what? What's this?
Explain. Psilocybin and
explain what we got to where that is important to the education of what someone can do for themselves to become even more beneficial than their current standard.
Okay, I have to keep giving it up. You know what I'm saying? That's just it's part of the law, you know, of exchange. You know, as you receive, you know, so shall you give, and then so on and so forth. So yes, he said, I'm a minister, an ordained minister to be more specific. I do have a church. Let me just go ahead and give a really quick disclosure. I did not grow up and think that I'll be having a ministry and being a minister, right? I actually grew up and thought I would be a lawyer or a judge at a point in time. I was passionate about playing sports and being a football player. I had a crazy near-death experience as a child that changed my path slightly. And when I ended up going to college and studying criminal law, X, Y, and Z, I realized I'm on the wrong side of this. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be a defense attorney, and I wanted to defend people who were doing crimes, you know, from going to jail. Just to realize, you know, more so through my near-death experience, which brought me closer to just humanity and people. It made me more gracious and grateful to be alive, if anybody's ever gone through that. And I started studying, psychology, as we talked about earlier. I started studying biology. I started studying how, I could have cancer, how is this correlated to the mind, et cetera, et cetera. And back in 2017, I went online and I publicly was teaching people about psychology and biology and how you got to understand epigenetics and how your body and your genes and your DNA is changing every 21 days based upon the places you're at and the foods that you're taking in, epigenetics. So this is my studies that led me into being ordained, right? So somebody online on the internet by the name, now at the time their name was Silverback. That was the alias. They recently, back in 2022, was initiated as ministers of finance for a kingdom in Benin and got name changes. One of the name changes of this individual now is Mansa Musa Ali. So the individual who ordained me, his name is Mansa Musa, right? And this was back in January 10th, 2020.
That's dope.
Right? So they came to my house. At first, I was working on underwriting and finance. This is where I started. Before I was in the ministry space, I was an underwriter. I knew that in order to make money, you either could go to work to learn how to make money, or you could start your business and you could make money from having your own business. I learned this from reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? In that book, he talked about the cash flow quadrant. So me understanding the time that we were in, age of technology, and feel free to cut me off at any point in time.
No. I'm soaking. Keep going.
Yeah. At the point in time, I understood where we're at and what's going on with the birth of Bitcoin and all these crypto coins. Now mine, I'm going through this transition in between 2017 and 2020, right before the pandemic. 2017 was also very significant because we had a solar eclipse. And this was the first one.
I was outside for that.
Exactly, that we could see
Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yep.
That at least that I can remember. So yeah, I was outside. Yeah, we went up North Georgia, Tallulah Falls. And before we could even get to the mountaintop, it started happening. That we parked the car on the side of the road, went into an open field, and I remember started shooting a music video, during that time. So I didn't know that how significant these eclipses are. Like, yeah, everything changed. And this is why, in 2020, certain things had to happen because we were starting to see in a whole new light. So fast forward, the church. Now, a church is simply a business. Most of our churches that we go to are nonprofits, 501c3s, right? When I was initiated or ordained, before I even started a church, I was instructed to create a foreign trust, right? So they were instructing me on how to build my family office before I even knew what a family office is. And the reason why they were doing this is because, again, I was preaching and teaching online, but I had a tribe. So this is when I was 25 years old. I was engaged.
Before you get too far,
go ahead.
501c3. Some of folks what that means right there, because you slid through the terminology like, oh yeah, that my bro, 501c, next week, tell them what that means.
Right, because like I said, I connected the 501c3 with the church. And typically you don't see the two connected. You think a church is just a church. But no, a church is a business that has to register with the state that it's in. Mm-hmm. You can't just start up your own religion and be like, this is our God, this is what we believe in. It don't just work like that. Although it kind of do work like that on the legal side, not the lawful side, it does work like that. So a 501c3 is a nonprofit organization. Many people know this. Many people don't know that it is also simply an internal revenue code, IRC. So it's a designation for a business. So instead of getting the EIN, if you want to talk about your personal beliefs and you want to operate in a way where you can still eat off of it, then you go in a nonprofit way, so people can donate and people can still support you. So these are what churches are, 501c3s. So like I was saying with the family office, they told me I had to get the trust ready. I had a tribe, I had a tribe, they came into my house. I was engaged at 25 years old. So a woman, she was 30 years old at the time. She had 2 children, a 6 and a 7-year-old. We were together about 2 years and I was leading them. And I had 2 other roommates, who were men older than me, who I was doing my best to expose the secrets of astrology, so people can know thyself a little bit more. So I was doing everybody's charts, everybody's readings, and showing people through astrology, you're not dealing with the external universe. And through psychology and biology, it shows you're dealing with the internal on the outside.
Check you out, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah, so I was commended for that online through the ethers, through the internet, right? They used to call it the Ethernet cable.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, back in the day before we had Wi-Fi, we had to plug in the computer into the PlayStation to actually play online. It was called the Ethernet cord. So now we use ethers as a spiritual term, but we don't connect the wavelength, So it was a year later, May 5th, 2021, actually Cinco de Mayo, where I actually opened up my church. And this was a year after they had been telling me of how to correct my status, which is my state of or my state of mind, through reaffirming it through different contracts. And also a big shout out to Don Kalam, because this is where we met at an event that he asked me to host.
Peace G.
You know what I'm saying? So I was studying his school at the time while also getting this specific instruction from these individuals they were actually coming from high places. So I didn't say this on the stage, but I'm gonna say it now, like they're Masons, but they're not just Masons, they're Moorish Masons. So I had never even knew there was such a thing, so they have their own house that dates back to the house of David. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So yeah, so Silverback brought an individual to my house, by the name of, I ain't gonna say his full name, I'm just gonna say Q. You know what I'm saying? Because his other name can be very controversial, but this individual, they descend from the house of David. So I should have known from the jump, something is not right.
Something special going on, right?
Yeah. Because, I think we might descend from another house. You know what I'm saying? Not the house of David. But anyways, he showed me things I never thought I'd see. Like securities worth trillions of dollars. He was like, yeah, my uncle is the minister of finance for Madagascar. And he was like, yeah, he's in control of like all of these bonds, but they're not treasury bonds. And that was the first time my world opened up to what money is. Oh, and that's why they actually came to my house, because Silverback was my underwriter. People had good credit scores. I would pass it on to him. He'd get them pre-approved in 24 to 48 hours. Now I'm in a position where I do this. But he came to my house when he was in Atlanta, and he was like, you know why I come here? You're the only one. You make videos anywhere. You be at the airport. You be in nature. You be in the ocean. And you talk about the same thing wherever you are. It's like you have some different type of persistency. That's why we're here. He said, otherwise we don't pull up on people. And they were like, but you need to understand what money is. Like, do you even know like where money is held? Like, banks don't hold your money. Since it's 2020, they started breaking it down. It was like, yeah, and the central banks actually rule the commercial banks. And the central banks are ruled and governed by private people, not even their private companies, their private families. And they was like, yeah, then you got to understand there's the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund. And then those are the policies that they come together to make on the money. And then the IMF is ruled and underneath the Hong Kong Monetary Fund, so on and so forth. And he was like, that's because they have a dynasty that's attached to their wealth. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's families doing business and it looks like government. So they broke all this down. Even cryptocurrency, like I guess you got me opening up. They were like, yeah, cryptocurrency, we think Bitcoin is for us. It was like, nah, that's intergalactical currency to pay off debt that they have with the entities that they've done business with. Because technology just didn't come out of nowhere. The microchip, which is if you put a microchip underneath a microscope, you see infinite layers. He's like, man didn't create that. You know what I'm saying? But it was a force of man or a part of man. Like man maybe had to integrate the mind with another being, but...
Hold on.
Well, let's go back.
Don't think he's going too far. Because your motherboard, the way that certain circuitries are lined up on it, mimic how they line up pyramids. It's a conversation that we probably don't have enough time for, but please, ladies and gentlemen, do your research on everything you hear to help you understand what you're perceiving. It helps when you do a little research to where you understand what's being entailed. If you got to clear your memory banks of stuff that's not pertinent or stuff that's not substantial to your evolution, get that shit out the way so you got room for this. Use your books, study. This type of knowledge is gonna be a collective on this type of channel to where you have this type of source in one venue to where you can come here, take some notes, take it back to the house and educate the family. Cool? Make sure you get that pen ready. My brother.
Yeah. Now also, like, if you have like an editor in the future, like throw up like a quick picture too, when you like, yo, look that up, and then like boom, it actually comes up, but it's just enough for them to actually have to go back or pause and then to.
I'm gonna do all of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do all of that.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm gonna do all of that.
We got to help our people, man.
Hey.
People like look it up. They be like,
stuff
they
like
still
this
sitting there scratching their
doesn't
head.
happen.
Like,
now, if we do a music video, got some half-naked women, and we got some champagne bottles, they want to know the name of the rappers.
Yeah,
That's crazy work to me. But you sit up here and you speak from a high-level college perspective, you lose 98% of the crowd, and they say that shit sucked. Blows me. Damn. It blows me. What happened there? Where did we lose ourselves? Damn. Where did knowledge not become the currency? Look, knowledge is power, I believe is what it is. But nowadays, it's more like money is power. But really focus on that. Knowledge is power. Not when you learn it, but when you learn it and share it. Look, I want you to make sure that they know your name, how to get a hold of you, how to follow you, right?
Right.
Please, drop that info. My name is Mr. Prescott. You know where to find me at MisterPrescott. Hit me up on TikTok. I'm looking for you. We're going to have a slew of this coming through. We got you. Who's this guy?
And me, I'm the Royal Minister, also known as Infinite Steve, the Infinite One. You can find me mainly on Instagram for now at the Royal Minister. Honestly, if you just type in the Royal, it'll come up. I've had some semi-viral content in the past couple of years, especially being in New York, talking about endorsements and talking about how I use my ministry and my trust, and also just simply my status correction to be able to endorse my lease, you know. So you guys can find out more information about that on my page. Send me a DM. Like he's been saying, study, do your research, you know, don't just have the knowledge, but share it, even if that's with the people you got it from. And that's how we can build.
Yes, indeed. We'll be here. Keep that path in your mind clear. Make sure that you're traveling without fear. That's what that's about. We'll check in next time, man. Y'all be cool out there. Stay frosty. Peace. My man. Too lit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Too lit. That energy is
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a reflection. You know,
I'm going to probably chop up all of this part. You can keep recording, my guy, but